Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you're new here, consider subscribing. It really helps keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now, sit back, relax, and let's get into the story. By the time the first one staggered in, I had already finished my third cup of cheap coffee and my second round of wiping down lint traps that were already clean. My name is Ryan Cole. I was 26 and I worked the graveyard shift at Sparkomatic Laundromat on the south edge of Greeley, Colorado. If you pull up Google Maps and zoom in on the old strip mall near the junction of US Highway 85 and 34, the one with the pawn shop and the shuttered Chinese buffet, that was my kingdom. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, the neon "open" sign in our front window buzzed over rows of humming machines and the smell of detergent. I took the night shift because nobody else wanted it and because the extra $1 per hour mattered. The boss, a guy named Frank Duncan, owned 3 other laundromats and a small car wash. He liked numbers, not people, and he liked that I did not complain. My job was simple. Keep the machines running, keep the floor clean, break $20 bills, and make sure nobody slept in the back corner. Most nights, the place was quiet after midnight. We had the usual types: third-shift nurses, truck drivers stopping off the highway, college kids from the University of Northern Colorado who loaded all their clothes into 3 industrial front loaders at once and then vanished to sit in their cars scrolling their phones. Then there were the regulars. An older guy named Jerry who brought in his jeans at exactly 11:30 every Tuesday. A single mom named Tasha who did laundry for herself and 2 kids after her closing shift at the gas station, and a homeless woman who came in when it was cold to warm her hands under the hand dryer in the bathroom. I kept a mental catalog of these people. They felt safe, predictable. That night started predictable. It was a little past 11:45. The clock above the change machine read 11:47 p.m. The hum of the Speed Queen washers blended with the heavy thump of 2 big dryers on the far wall. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The TV in the corner played a local news channel on mute with captions on, showing something about unrest in Denver that I half read and half ignored. I sat behind the front counter on a tall stool, scrolling through my phone. My charger cable ran into an outlet that also fed the small security DVR. 4 cameras watched the place. 1 on the front door, 1 on the aisles of machines, 1 over the change machines, and 1 in the back hallway by the employee door and the breaker panel. I could flip through the views on the little monitor, though most of the time there was nothing to see but spinning drums and the occasional person moving like they were underwater. On the TV, the news ticker at the bottom of the screen mentioned aggressive behavior, unknown illness, and emergency rooms reaching capacity. It had been like that all day. Something weird in Denver, in Fort Collins, in other cities. Videos online of people lurching around, eyes blank, cops yelling for them to get down. Half the internet said it was fake. The other half said it was some mutated version of rabies or a drug nobody had heard of. My group chat was full of memes and shaky phone clips of someone stumbling in front of a King Soopers store. Somebody had added a caption, "New bath salts just dropped." I had laughed at that an hour earlier. By midnight, the laughter felt a lot farther away. I heard the door chime ding over the steady rhythm of the machines. I looked up automatically. That was part of the job. Make eye contact, give a nod, make it harder for someone to pretend they were invisible if they decided to try anything shady. The man who came in looked wrong before I could put words to why. He was shirtless, barefoot, and his jeans were smeared with something dark that caught the light unevenly. His skin had that pale, washed-out look that heavy drinkers sometimes had when they came in from the cold, but his lips were stained a rusty brown, and he was breathing in short, shallow bursts. Behind him, the December night pressed against the glass panels. The parking lot's sodium lamps threw an orange glow over the cracked asphalt, and the two other cars parked near my old Toyota Corolla. A light snow was drifting down, tiny flakes that barely showed in the light. The man should have been shivering. It was barely above freezing outside. He moved like he did not feel it. "Hey man, you okay?" I said. He did not answer. His eyes flicked past me, empty and unfocused. He walked forward a few steps, then sort of veered sideways into a row of white top-loading machines, bumping his shoulder against the metal. The impact made a dull thud. He did not react. There were only two other customers in the place at that moment. Jerry was at his usual machine, sitting on a plastic chair, watching his jeans spin. He wore his Denver Broncos hoodie and a trucker cap pulled low. At the folding table near the back, a young woman I had not seen before was folding a pile of medical scrubs. Her hair was pulled back in a tight bun. Her badge, clipped to her scrub top, rotated as she moved. I caught the words North Colorado Medical Center and RN. They both looked up. "Sir?" I tried again. I stepped around the counter, forcing my voice to stay calm. "You need help? We got a bathroom in the back if you're sick." He turned his head toward me slowly. His pupils looked too large under the fluorescent lights. His mouth opened. There was a thick line of dark spit, or something heavier, at the corner of his lips. His teeth were red along the edges. I felt a prickle run up the back of my neck. "Ryan," Jerry called. "That guy drunk or something?" "Sir, you can't be in here without a shirt," I said. "You're freaking people out. We got a dress code. Let me call someone for you." He let out a sound. It started as a low groan, then rose in pitch, but it did not form any word I recognized. No help, no hurts. Just a raw noise that came from deep in his chest. Then he stepped toward me, faster than his earlier shuffling walk suggested he could. I kept my distance, one hand up, like the videos they show in basic customer service training when dealing with aggressive customers. "Okay, take it easy," I said. "You can stop right there, all right? I'll call an ambulance." My phone was on the counter. For a split second, I thought about backing up to grab it. I decided against turning my back on him. Instead, I reached for the wall phone mounted behind the counter, next to the shelf with the dryer sheets and small boxes of detergent for sale. "Ryan, what's going on?" The nurse's voice had a clipped edge to it, the kind that comes from too many nights with not enough staff. "Probably just drunk," I said, not entirely believing it. I lifted the receiver and punched 911. Nothing happened. There should have been the standard series of beeps, then the ringing. Instead, the line stayed dead. No dial tone, no sound. I looked at the little LED on the base. The power light was on. I pressed the hook switch a couple of times. Nothing. The man made another sound, higher now, a strained, rasping cry. Then he lurched into the aisle between two rows of washers, his bare feet slapping on the tile, leaving faint dark prints behind him. "Sir," the nurse said sharply, "stop. You're hurt. Sit down." He did not stop. He walked straight toward the folding table where she stood, his gait uneven but driven. Hands slightly raised as if reaching for her. She stepped back, knocking into a laundry cart. The metal basket clanged against another cart and rolled away. She grabbed a plastic laundry basket off the table, set it between them like a barrier. "Ryan, do something," she snapped. "Hey," I yelled, "stop right there." I came around the counter. He was close enough now that I could see the details on his skin. There were scratches along his chest and shoulders, long and narrow, some shallow, some deeper. The edges of the deeper ones had clotted in a way that looked wrong, too dark and sticky. His forearms had bite marks. Human bite marks. The skin around them was swollen and discolored, with crescent-shaped impressions where teeth had sunk in. I had seen people come in after bar fights. I had never seen anything like that. He lunged at the nurse. It was not a stumble. There was intent in it. She swung the plastic laundry basket at him, catching him in the shoulder. It knocked him sideways a little, but he came right back at her, hands reaching. That broke something in me. I stepped in, grabbed his arm, and tried to pull him back. His skin felt hot and oddly stiff. He glanced at me, mouth snapping shut and then opening, teeth clacking. His other hand shot out, fingers digging into the sleeve of my hoodie with unexpected force. "Let go!" I shouted. I yanked hard. Momentum sent both of us off balance. We crashed into a row of stainless steel front loaders. My shoulder hit the metal edge. Pain shot through me, bright and sharp. For a split second, his face was inches from mine. His eyes had a cloudy film over them, not completely white, but like he had old contact lenses on. His breath smelled like iron and rot and something sour. His jaw snapped, teeth closing on empty air where my neck had been half a second earlier. Adrenaline surged. I drove my knee up into his midsection, putting all my weight into it. I did not think about technique, I just wanted distance. He doubled over a little, more from the physical displacement than any apparent pain. I shoved him away. His bare feet slipped on the tile and he went down hard, hitting the floor with a smack that echoed. He lay there for a second. Limbs splayed at odd angles. Any normal person would have stayed down for at least a few seconds, gasping. He rolled onto his hands and knees almost immediately, pushing himself up with the same jerky determination. "Ryan." Jerry's voice was unnaturally calm. "Turn on the news." I glanced at the TV in the corner. The mute caption scrolled. The image had changed in the last few minutes. No more polished anchor in a studio. The feed showed a shaky camera view of what looked like downtown Denver. There were people running, streets blocked by emergency vehicles with their light bars flashing. The captions were jumbled, partial phrases. "Do not approach. Aggressive individuals. Stay indoors." My hand trembled on the receiver. I hung up and grabbed my cell phone off the counter. The screen showed 3 bars of LTE, then briefly dropped to 1, then back. I thumbed the emergency call button. The call screen flashed. For a second, I thought it had connected. Then the attempt ended by itself. Call failed. "What the?" I whispered. "Back room," the nurse said. "Now." She stepped around the fallen laundry basket, keeping the table between herself and the man, and moved toward the back hallway. Her voice had that tone I had heard from medics before. Not panicked, but not casual either. "We need to put some space between us and whatever that is." "I can't just leave him on the floor," I said. "He is not acting normal," she said. "This is not one drunk guy. There's something else going on. You saw his arms." The man pushed himself up again, legs tensing. His head snapped toward the sound of the dryers, then toward us. His attention locked on the nurse, then shifted to me, then back to her. He made a low, rumbling sound and moved forward. Jerry stood up slowly, his hands on the arms of his plastic chair for leverage. "Kid," he said quietly, "phone's dead, guy is covered in bites, and the news looks like a disaster movie. Listen to the nurse." The decision took a fraction of a second but stretched in my mind. Duty to help versus self-preservation. We did not have cuffs, restraints, or even a first aid kit that was worth anything beyond bandages and alcohol wipes. We had brooms, plastic laundry carts, and a heavy metal change machine bolted to the floor. "Go," I told them. "Back room, now." I grabbed the nearest laundry cart, one of the wire frame ones with a big round basket, and rolled it between us and the man. It was not much, but it gave me something to push with. He came at me again. This time, I met him halfway, shoving the cart hard into his shins. It hit with enough force to knock his legs out from under him. He went down again, body hitting the tile. His head bounced off the floor with a dull smack. Any normal person would have been at least groaning from that. He just started to push himself up again. "Back room!" I shouted over my shoulder. I heard the nurse's sneakers squeak on the tile as she moved. Jerry's slow steps followed. Somewhere behind me, the back hallway door creaked as she pushed through it. That hallway led to the employee bathroom, storage room, and the heavy steel back door that opened into the narrow alley between our building and the pharmacy. I backed toward them, pushing the cart as a moving barrier. The man crawled toward me, using his hands and knees with mechanical persistence. His fingers left smudges on the floor. Another chime sounded from the front door. The automatic closer had almost shut it when the next person pushed it inward. This one wore a coat, but it hung open despite the cold. Her hair was matted, and one side of her face looked swollen. She moved in an odd, stiff way, her head tipping as she scanned the room. Her eyes had the same cloudy look. As soon as she saw me and the others, her breathing quickened. She stepped fully inside and the door swung shut behind her with a soft thump. Any thought that these were just sick people needing help slipped away. There was too much intent in the way both of them moved toward us. Not the confusion of someone in pain, but a direct, focused drive. "Back," I said again, more to myself than to them. The nurse held the hallway door open, one hand bracing it, the other gripping a mop handle she had grabbed from the closet by the soda machines. Jerry shuffled through, glancing back, his eyes unusually sharp without their usual lazy, half-lidded expression. I pushed the cart harder, then abandoned it as soon as I was close enough to the back hallway. I darted through the doorway and pulled it shut behind me, twisting the lock. The man hit the other side of the door almost immediately. The impact rattled the cheap wood. A second impact followed a heartbeat later as the woman joined him. Their combined pounding sent a fine tremor through the frame. "Holy!" I caught myself before finishing the word. "They're insane." "It is not insanity," the nurse said. Her breathing was fast but controlled. "Their pupils, the discoloration, those bite marks. This matches what we were seeing at the hospital today. They were calling it a neuro-invasive infection. People were losing higher function, becoming extremely aggressive. There were warnings about not letting them get close enough to bite." "You saw this today?" I said. She nodded. "I work nights in the emergency department. Name's Lauren." She held out a quick automatic hand and then seemed to realize this was not the time for introductions. They told us not to share anything publicly yet, but we were already seeing people come in from Fort Collins, from smaller towns. Some cops, some paramedics, some family members who got bitten trying to hold someone down. The last alert on our internal system before I left said the transmissions were confirmed by bites and blood contact. If you are bit, you isolate. No exceptions. The pounding on the door continued. I could hear low vocalizations, not words, just sounds. "Did he bite you?" Lauren asked me sharply. "No," I said, scanning my arms. He grabbed my sleeve. "That's it." "Any broken skin?" she demanded. I checked again. There was a scrape on my elbow from hitting the machines, a thin pink line, no deep cuts. "No, just this. Keep an eye on it," she said. "If anything worse happens, if you get fever, confusion, we isolate you. Understood?" "Understood," I echoed. The fact that she said "we isolate" like it was something she'd already practiced made my stomach tighten. Jerry leaned against the wall, breathing a little harder from the sudden movement. "You said bites," he said. "They looked chewed on." "Exactly," Lauren said. Her eyes flicked toward the closed door as another heavy blow made it shudder. Those two might have been patients who walked out, or people who got out before they were admitted. I don't know. What about cops? I said. National Guard? Somebody has to be doing something. Last I heard, before I clocked out, the police were overwhelmed, Lauren said. They were trying to establish perimeters around the hospital. They were asking people to stay home. That was at about 10:30. Things could be worse now. Jerry snorted. You think? I looked at the back hallway. The fluorescent light here was harsher than the main room, bouncing off the beige paint and scuffed baseboards. On the left, the employee restroom door sat slightly open. On the right, the storage room with spare parts and boxes of detergent was closed. At the end of the hallway stood the steel back door with its crash bar and small wired glass window. I have to check the back, I said. If we can get out that way, my car is just around the corner of the building. You think it is clear out there? Jerry asked. I don't know, I admitted. But I know it's not clear out front anymore. Lauren nodded once. Go slow. Don't just fling the door open, look through the glass. If anything looks wrong, we fall back and barricade ourselves in the storage room. There's only one door there, easier to defend. Her tone was matter-of-fact. Whether she had learned that from nursing or from something else, I did not know. It was grounding. I moved down the hallway, my shoes silent on the linoleum. Every sound seemed amplified. The pounding on the interior door behind us, the faint, distant thrum of the washers and dryers on the other side, and something else. A new noise I could not place at first. A bang from somewhere outside. A car horn stuck on, droning. At the back door, I stopped and peered through the wired glass. The alley behind the laundromat was lit by a single security floodlight mounted high on the wall. Its motion sensor had triggered. Pale light spread over the narrow strip of cracked pavement, 2 dumpsters, and a stack of broken pallets against the far wall. Snowflakes moved through the light. I saw no movement aside from that. Looks clear, I said quietly. Open it a crack, Lauren said. Listen first. I pushed the crash bar slowly, easing the door open until the latch cleared, then held it before it could swing. Cold air flowed in, sharp and clean compared to the detergent smell inside. I listened. At first, I heard nothing but the distant hiss of traffic from the highway and the faint echo of sirens somewhere far off. Then came another sound closer, not footsteps. More like something scraping against pavement, irregular and rough. It came from the left, around the corner that led to the front parking lot. I froze. Jerry held his breath behind me. Lauren's hand tightened on the mop handle. The scraping grew louder, then stopped. For a long moment there was silence again. Then a human shape moved into the edge of the floodlight's beam. It was a man in a puffy winter coat, hood half up. He staggered as if his knees did not bend properly, dragging one foot. His head slowly turned as if he was sniffing for something. His hands hung at his sides, fingers flexing. Even at this distance, there was something off about the way he moved, as if his body was a suit he was not fully familiar with. He kept going, passing the alley mouth without turning in. Another figure followed a few seconds later, then another. They moved at uneven speeds, but all in the same general direction, toward the highway or maybe just following some scent we could not detect. Lauren leaned close enough to see. Same. Same as what? Jerry asked. Same as what walked into the emergency department this afternoon, she said. Same posture, same uncoordinated but driven movement. They were calling it advanced cases. Once they get to that stage, they stop responding to commands. They only move toward stimuli, sound, movement, maybe smell. So, if it's quiet, they do what? Jerry asked. Wander until they find something, she said. We had a code in one of the halls around 5. A patient got out of restraints, went after a family member. The only thing that stopped him was 3 security guards and 2 nurses pinning him down. He kept trying to bite. Even when they sedated him, he fought. I closed the door softly until the latch engaged. My heart hammered in my chest. "Okay," I said. "Front is bad, back is bad, phone is useless, landline is dead, so we stay here for now." "Works for me," Jerry said. "What about power? If they hit a substation or something, we'll be sitting in the dark in here." I looked at the ceiling. The lights flickered faintly, then steadied. The hum of the machines had a slight irregularity I had not noticed before. Now that he said it, the vulnerability of this place hit me in a new way. The laundromat's breaker panel was in the hallway, a gray metal box with a simple latch. I opened it and scanned the rows of labeled switches. There was no backup generator here, just city power. All I could do from here was cut power to sections if we needed to. "We should control the noise," Lauren said. "Those things outside. If sound draws them, we do not want this place sounding like a carnival." "The machines are already running," I said. "If I shut them off, people's clothes are stuck. I mean, they're probably not coming back tonight, but—" "Ryan," she said gently, "if they're out in this, getting their laundry cycle finished is not their main problem right now." She was right. The normal habit of keeping customers happy felt almost silly. "Okay," I said. "Panels right here. Dryers are on these breakers." I pointed at the labels. "We kill half of them for now. Leave just a few near the front to keep up some noise there. Make the front louder than the back," she said. "If they gather, we want them on the other side of that door." I flipped off the breakers for the back bank of dryers. The low rumble in the building dropped a notch. The pounding at the hallway door seemed louder by contrast. "Storage room," Lauren said. "We need to see what we have. If we have to stay, we need supplies. If we have a chance to leave, we need to move fast. I want to know what we can grab." We opened the storage room door. Inside, the space was stacked with cardboard boxes of detergent, softener, and spare parts for the machines. An industrial shelving unit held hoses, replacement belts, and a few labeled crates. A metal cabinet against the far wall had a padlock, which was open. Frank never liked to throw anything away, but also never invested in real security. I opened the cabinet. Inside were basic cleaning chemicals: bleach, degreaser, glass cleaner. A first aid kit sat on the middle shelf. Next to it was a red metal fire extinguisher mounted in a bracket. On the bottom shelf, half hidden by rags, was a small green plastic toolbox. I pulled the toolbox out and flipped it open. Inside were hand tools: a hammer, a set of screwdrivers, pliers, an adjustable wrench, and a box cutter with spare blades. "These will have to do," I said. Lauren took the hammer, testing the weight. "Not ideal," she said, "but better than nothing." Jerry reached for the adjustable wrench. "I can swing this if I have to," he said. That left me with the box cutter and a long Phillips screwdriver I slid into my hoodie pocket. I also unhooked the fire extinguisher and set it near the door. It was a standard ABC dry chemical unit, enough to put out a small fire or hit someone hard if needed. "You got any food in this place?" Jerry asked. "Feels like this might be a long night." I thought of the vending machines out front. One had chips, candy bars, and a few stale pastry packs. The other held soda and bottled water. Both took dollar bills and coins. I had the keys to the machines in the small lockbox under the front counter. "Vending machines," I said. "But they're out there." I jerked my thumb toward the door that separated us from the main room and our guests. "We'll get it later," Lauren said. "Right now, we need a plan." We gathered in the hallway again, close enough to the door to the main room that we could hear more than just the pounding. There were at least 2 voices now, maybe more. Scraping sounds, like fingernails on wood mixed with the heavy thud of fists or shoulders. My eyes went to the small gap at the bottom of the door. A darker smear marked the edge where something had scraped. The cheap hollow core wood was not made to deal with sustained abuse. "They will get through eventually," Jerry said. "Maybe," Lauren said. "Maybe they will lose interest if they cannot reach us." As if to contradict her, the blows intensified. The door frame creaked. "Yeah, that sounds like losing interest," Jerry muttered. I swallowed. "What if we distract them?" I said slowly. "You said they go towards sound. What if we crank the front dryers up, make them louder, then find a way to draw them to one side while we slip out the back?" Lauren thought about it. "It might work if we can get them focused on one source. Sound, maybe movement. But how do you plan to lure them without being in the same room?" I held up the ring of keys hanging from my belt. "Frank has me lock up at night sometimes if the day clerk is sick. I have keys for the front door, side utility closet, vending machines, you name it." I pointed to the left side of the laundromat, on the other side of the main front room. "There's a maintenance closet with a small access hatch that leads to the space above the drop ceiling. Frank had an electrician up there last month. He made me crawl through to check a junction box. It connects over the main area." "You're saying you can go over them," Lauren said. "If I can get into the crawl space from the back hallway and move above the ceiling tiles, I might be able to reach the drop near the front door," I said. "We could make a noise on that end, maybe knock something down, then they all move toward it. Meanwhile, you two wait at the back door. Once they're focused on the front, you go out, get to my car. I drop down and follow or find another way out." "It is risky," she said. "So is waiting here until that door gives way," I said. Jerry shrugged. "I am not built for climbing through ceilings," he said. "I will take the ground route." Lauren exhaled slowly. "All right," she said. "Show me this access hatch." We moved down the hallway to the small door near the employee restroom. It was only a little wider than a closet door and labeled electrical maintenance. I unlocked it and swung it open. Inside, the space was tight. Just enough room for a water heater, some pipes, and the ladder that led up to the hatch into the ceiling. The ladder was metal, bolted to the wall. At the top was a square panel in the ceiling with a finger hole. I pointed. That's how the electrician got up. Lauren inspected the ladder. She tugged on it, testing its stability. It held firm. "You are sure it's safe?" she asked. "Safe is relative tonight," I said. "But I climbed it 2 weeks ago and did not die." She almost smiled at that, almost. "I do not like sending you alone," she said. "But you know the layout better than either of us. Jerry and I will be slower anyway. If you can handle the ceiling, do it." Jerry leaned against the hallway wall. "Once you make noise, we go," he said. "We will not wait around." "The moment you hear something loud toward the front," I said, "you count to 10 and then go out the back door. Move low, stay quiet until you're clear of the alley. My car is that gray Corolla parked 2 spaces from the door near the pawn shop. License plate ending in 32K. Keys are in my pocket. Lauren, you take them." I handed her the key ring with my car fob. "You sure?" she asked. "If something happens to me in the ceiling, there is no point in you being locked out of the car," I said. The practical tone in my own voice surprised me. She nodded, closing her fingers around the keys. "We get to the car, what then?" "We drive," I said. "Out of the lot, onto 85 or 34, whichever is less blocked. We head away from downtown, away from the hospital, maybe into the residential neighborhoods, maybe out towards the farms. We figure it out once we are moving." The plan sounded thin even as I said it, but it was something. "All right," Lauren said. "Go, be careful. Do not fall through a ceiling tile. That is not how you want to break your leg tonight." "Understood," I said. I stepped into the maintenance closet and gripped the ladder. The metal was cold and slightly dusty under my hands. I climbed, trying to ignore the way each rung creaked a little. At the top, I braced myself and pushed up on the hatch panel. It moved, then flipped back on a simple hinge, revealing darkness above. The smell of dust and fiberglass insulation drifted down. I pulled myself up, resting my torso on the edge, then swung my legs through. The ceiling joists were narrow wooden beams, with suspended grid rails below that held the acoustic tiles for the laundry area. I pulled the hatch closed behind me to avoid any shaft of light giving away movement. The space above the ceiling was cramped and uneven, full of ductwork and electrical conduits. I flicked on my phone flashlight for just a moment to get my bearings, then switched it off, not wanting to create an obvious beam of light that might show through any gaps. I moved forward on hands and knees, careful to place my weight on the joists, not on the ceiling tiles themselves. The drop ceiling would not support me. One misstep, and I would crash into a row of washing machines, probably breaking something important in my body and my plan. Below me, I could hear the muffled sounds of the laundromat. The pounding on the hallway door was more distant, but I could tell it was still happening. The remaining dryers near the front rumbled, their vibration traveling up through the structure. I counted joists, mentally mapping my route. The front of the building was about 30 feet away. The front door was roughly centered. The vents and ductwork gave me vague reference points. I had been up here only once, but the memory came back as I inched forward. At one point, I slid a little, my foot almost slipping off a joist. My knee bumped insulation, sending a puff of dust into the air. I froze, steadying my breathing, heart pounding. The ceiling tile below me flexed slightly and then settled. No sudden crash. I let out a slow breath and kept going. As I got closer to the front, faint light from the parking lot signs and streetlights filtered up through small gaps around the tops of windows and vents. It gave just enough illumination to see the outline of beams and ducts. I reached the area above the front row of washers and dryers. I knew from below that the front door was maybe 6 feet to my left. I edged in that direction, moving slowly. Voices, if you could call them that, were louder here. Low groans, occasional higher-pitched sounds, and the scrape of something against metal. Carefully, I shifted my weight and pressed my ear closer to the grid. Through the tile, I heard them. There were more than two now. The sounds came from multiple points. Feet shuffled. Something bumped against a metal chair. Fingers scraped glass. I needed a way to create a loud, focused noise near the front for them to latch onto, something that would hold their attention for long enough for Lauren and Jerry to get out the back, down the alley, and into the car. I had no remote controls up here, no speakers. Just my hands, my phone, and whatever loose objects might be near the edge of the ceiling. I thought of the coin dispensers and the change machine. People always bumped into them. They were heavy, bolted down. The small metal stool next to the front window, though, might not be. If I could drop a part of the ceiling, bump into the stool or a folding table, the impact might be enough. A reckless idea surfaced. I did not like it, but it was what I had. If I could find a point near the front corner, I could push down a tile and drop something from above, then quickly move back, forcing the things below to converge on that spot. I could crawl along the opposite side, away from their focus, and then return to the hatch. First, I needed something to drop. I shifted my weight and reached into my hoodie pocket. The only hard object I had was the screwdriver, but I needed that as a potential weapon. Dropping tools in front of these infected people would not help much. I scanned the ceiling area in front of me by feel. hands exploring over beams and ducts. My fingers brushed something thin and metal. It was a spare section of duct, maybe 3 feet long and shaped like a flattened oval. It was not too heavy but would make a good noise if it hit the floor or a table. I pulled it closer, careful not to knock it against anything yet. I turned myself slowly so that my feet pointed toward the front wall. Then I shuffled forward until I was directly above what I hoped was the front right corner of the laundromat. I reached down, palm flat, feeling for the edges of a ceiling tile. I found it, then slid it gently, opening a gap. Through the narrow space I glimpsed the room below. What I saw made my throat tighten. There were at least 6 of them in the main room now. 2 were the ones we had seen earlier, shirtless man and the woman. They were near the hallway door, shoulders slamming into it. The others were scattered, but all faced the hallway like dogs focused on a scent behind a closed door. One had crashed into a row of plastic chairs, knocking 2 over. Another had broken the front of the snack vending machine, cracking the glass with repeated blows, although it had not fully shattered yet. The floor was streaked with marks where shoes and bare feet had smeared whatever was on them. I did not let my mind name it. Near the front window, the folding table stood partly askew, one corner bent from an impact. The small stool beside the window was on its side, not far from the front door. I slid the tile back just enough to widen the gap. None of the infected looked up. Their attention was on the hallway. "Good," I whispered. I positioned the duct section over the gap, took a breath, then dropped it. The metal piece fell about 8 feet, spinning once before striking the folding table. The impact made a loud, sharp clang. The table collapsed partly, one leg bending. The duct bounced off, skidding across the tile with another series of clanks. Every infected person in the room froze, then jerked their heads toward the sound. The change was immediate and complete. The pounding on the hallway door stopped. They turned, one by one, moving toward the front corner where the noise had come from. The sound of their feet on the tile, their hands brushing against machines, filled the room. They converged on the fallen duct, some of them pawing at it, others bumping into each other, jostling for position. One slammed into the front window, leaving a greasy print. They made low, excited sounds, mouths opening and closing. I did not wait. As soon as they were fully in motion toward the front, I began to back away along the joists, moving faster than before, but still careful. Once I was 10 feet back, I allowed myself to turn and crawl quickly, the muscles in my arms and legs burning. The sounds from below were still focused toward the front. I pictured Lauren and Jerry in the hallway, hearing the noise and making their move. In the close overhead space, time stretched. It felt like hours before I reached the hatch, even though it could not have been more than a minute. When the panel finally came into view, my relief was sharp. I nudged it open with my shoulder, dropped my legs through, and climbed down the ladder as fast as I dared. My shoes hit the maintenance closet floor. I stumbled out into the hallway. The hallway was empty. My chest clenched. For a second, panic rose. Then I saw the back door, slightly ajar, cold air seeping in. They had gone. Good. They were following the plan. I moved to the back door and peered through the gap. The alley was empty. Snow had thickened, coating the pavement in a thin white layer that reflected the floodlight. There were footprints in the snow, 2 sets. One larger, heavier, one lighter. They led away from the door, turning a left toward the mouth of the alley and the parking lot. No shapes shambled between the dumpsters. No hands clawed at the walls. The scraping sound from before was gone. I eased the door open wider and slipped out into the cold. The air hit me like a slap. I realized how warm the laundromat had been. My breath steamed in front of me. I pulled my hoodie tighter and moved down the alley, staying close to the wall. My sneakers were slick on the snow and I walked carefully, not wanting to slip. At the corner, I slowed and peeked around. The parking lot beyond looked like a scene from a different kind of late night. The pawn shop's neon sign flickered. The dark windows of the closed buffet reflected the lot's harsh lights. My gray Corolla sat where I had left it. Next to it, Jerry's old Ford Taurus idled, exhaust visible in the cold air. Its headlights were off, but the red glow of taillights painted the snow behind it. Their shapes were inside, slightly blurred by fog on the windows. Good. They had made it. Between the laundromat and the car, two infected wandered. One was near the dumpster by the buffet, head turning slowly. The other stood near the middle of the lot, facing away from us, swaying slightly. Farther out, near the entrance to the lot, I could see more movement. 3, maybe 4 figures at the edge of the strip mall, moving down the sidewalk. I could not tell if they had seen our cars yet, but their pace was that same jerky determination. I pulled back into the alley, brain spinning. If I just sprinted for my car, I would draw every eye in the lot. Maybe I was fast enough, maybe not. The Taurus's passenger side door opened a crack. Lauren leaned out, her face pale in the cold light. She made a small hand gesture, asking silently how many. I held up 2 fingers, then pointed toward the street and held up more in a rough estimate. Her jaw tightened. She gave a short nod, then closed the door. I could not yell. Noise would bring more of them. I needed a way to clear a path or at least distract the ones nearest us. My mind went back to the laundromat's machines. Sound worked. That was clear. The infected inside had all turned toward the noise I made. If I could create a stronger sound away from our cars, maybe I could pull these ones off. The idea that formed was stupid. It also might be the only thing that fit the situation. I backed into the alley, returned to the back door, and slipped inside again. The pounding at the hallway door had not resumed. Inside the main room, the muffled clatter continued as the infected fussed over the fallen duct. I could hear an occasional bang on the front window. They were still focused away from us. I moved to the breaker panel and looked at the labels again. One switch controlled power to the neon signs, another to the ceiling lights. The big one at the top controlled the dryers. If I flipped it off and on repeatedly, it would cause the dryers to cycle, systems complaining with beeps and motor sounds. But that was still inside. I needed something I could control from here that would project noise outside. My eyes scanned the hallway. There was nothing obvious, no external buzzer, no alarm system I could trigger without setting off who knew what response. Then it hit me. Cars. If I could get to my car and set off its alarm, then retreat, the noise might pull the infected toward it, away from Jerry's Taurus. But getting there required passing through part of the lot anyway. I was circling the same problem. I was about to give up on clever ideas and consider just running for it when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I almost jumped out of my skin. I grabbed it and looked at the screen. A single push notification from an emergency alert system had gotten through, probably cached during one of the brief moments when the network had been up. The banner read, "Emergency alert, shelter in place. Avoid contact with individuals exhibiting violent behavior and signs of infection. Discoloration, unresponsiveness to commands. Do not attempt to approach or assist. Await further instructions." No help there. I checked the signal strength, 1 bar flickered, then dropped. No calls would get through. I looked back toward the main room. The hallway door's frame had a thin crack now. The wood was splintering where the infected had thrown themselves against it earlier. It would not hold forever. If we were going to leave, it had to be now. Decision time. I went back out into the alley one more time, taking a deep breath of cold air. I pulled the fire extinguisher from where I had set it by the door and cradled it in both hands. It had enough mass to hit hard. The metal handle would not feel great against my fingers in the cold, but I ignored that. I moved to the corner and looked into the lot again. The two infected closest to us had shifted. The one in the middle of the lot had turned slightly, head raised in the direction of some distant noise. A siren, maybe. The other, near the buffet dumpster, scraped its hand along the building wall, leaving streaks. I thought of a tactic I had seen in self-defense videos. Throw something past an attacker to draw attention the other way. It worked on drunk humans. Maybe it would work on infected ones. I scanned the ground near my feet. A broken piece of cinder block lay near the dumpster, half buried in snow. I picked it up. It was heavy, but manageable. I aimed for the far side of the lot, near the pawn shop. With a grunt, I hurled the cinder block chunk as far as I could. It arced through the air and crashed onto the pavement near the pawn shop's front window with a loud crack. Both nearby infected snapped their heads toward the sound. They started moving in that direction immediately, leaving our side of the lot. One of the figures on the sidewalk farther out also turned, changing direction. The window of the Taurus opened again. Lauren's eyes met mine. I pointed toward the gap between the cars where the infected had been, then made a cutting motion with my hand. She gave a sharp nod. She put the Taurus in gear. The car rolled backward slowly, tires crunching over the thin snow. Its lights stayed off. The engine's sound was low. The movement drew no immediate reaction from the infected, who remained focused on the cinder block's impact zone. The Taurus turned, nose swinging toward the lot exit. I realized they were going to pick me up at the alley mouth rather than wait by my Corolla. Good, that simplified things. I moved quickly, but stayed low, back bent, the fire extinguisher tucked close. I reached the mouth of the alley just as the Taurus pulled up. The passenger door popped open. "Get in," Lauren said. I dove inside, pulling the door shut behind me as quietly as I could. Jerry's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. His eyes were fixed on the infected near the pawn shop. "One of them saw us," he said in a low voice. "We need to move." Lauren twisted in her seat to look back. One infected near the street had indeed turned its head toward the car. It started moving our way, slowly, but at a steady pace that made my skin crawl. "Go," she said. Jerry pressed the accelerator. The Taurus eased forward, then picked up speed as he turned toward the exit. As we rolled past my Corolla, a nostalgic pang shot through me. My entire life was in that car. My spare clothes, my work shoes, the emergency $10 bill I kept tucked in the visor. It looked suddenly fragile and small. At the lot exit, Jerry turned on the headlights. The beams swept over the street, catching 3 infected on the sidewalk in harsh light. Their faces twisted toward us. One opened its mouth in a soundless cry. Jerry did not slow. He turned onto the main road and accelerated. The car's engine strained for a moment, then settled as we reached 35 miles per hour. In the rearview mirror, the strip mall shrank. The laundromat's neon sign glowing in the night looked almost normal from this distance, the way it had on 100 other nights when nothing more serious than a broken washer had happened. That image burned itself into my memory more than all the violent details. That was the last time I saw Spark-O-Matic as just a place of work. We drove in silence for a few blocks, the only sound the hum of the tires and our breathing. "So," Jerry said finally, his voice shaky but trying for humor, "where to, boss?" I looked out the window. Greeley's small-town grid stretched out on either side. The streetlights cast orange pools on the snow. Some houses were lit, decorations still up from the holidays. Other blocks were dark, either from power outages or people who had decided to shut everything off. "We cannot go to the hospital," Lauren said. "That was chaos even before I left. It will be 10 times worse now. Same with downtown, the police station, anywhere that people would instinctively go for help." "We could go to my apartment," I said, "but it is in a big complex near campus. That means a lot of people, a lot of potential infections." "I live in a second-floor place over on 14th Avenue, Jerry said. "Small building, 6 units. But my neighbors, I do not know who is sick, who is not." Lauren's jaw worked as she thought. "My place is out near the edge of town," she said slowly. "Duplex, 1 story, fewer neighbors, but still people. And I do not know who came through the emergency department today and then went home." We passed an intersection where a traffic light blinked yellow in all directions. A pickup truck sat in the middle of the crossing, driver's side door open. No one was inside. The passenger side window was shattered. A smear ran down the door. A figure moved near the truck. It turned slowly as we passed, following the sound of our engine. Its face was partly hidden by a hood, but the posture was the same as the others. "We keep moving for now," I said. "Away from clusters. Away from main roads if we can." "Fuel," Jerry said. "Tank's half full. That could get us a good distance, but we cannot drive forever, and who knows what the gas stations look like right now." Lauren leaned forward, peering at the dashboard. "We need information," she said. "Phones are spotty, but radio might still work. Turn on AM, local stations." Jerry reached for the dial and switched from Bluetooth to AM. After a burst of static, a voice came in midway through a sentence. "Repeat, this is an emergency broadcast from the state of Colorado. Residents are urged to remain indoors and avoid contact with individuals displaying signs of severe neurological impairment, including unresponsiveness to commands, visible injuries, and aggressive behavior. Law enforcement is overwhelmed. National Guard units are being mobilized. Curfew is in effect until further notice. If you are in a safe indoor location, stay there. Do not attempt to travel unless absolutely necessary." The message was followed by a series of tones, then repeated. The announcer's voice sounded stiff and over-enunciated, like they were reading from a script they had only just been handed. "That is helpful," Jerry muttered. "Do not go anywhere. Stay where you are. Real easy to say if where you are is not about to fill with those things." "They're telling people what they have to," Lauren said. "If everyone tries to drive at once, the roads will be packed. That is how people get trapped in their cars." We passed another strip of businesses. The lights in some were off, others on. In front of a small bar, a group of infected clustered near the door, banging on it. The windows had boards hastily nailed over them from the inside. I glimpsed faces peering out between the boards, eyes wide. "How long has this been going on?" I asked Lauren quietly. She stared out the windshield, her jaw tight. "First cases started trickling in about 2 days ago," she said. "It looked like a weird flu at first. High fever, confusion, mild aggression. We thought maybe it was some drug. Then the bites started. People coming in with injuries from family members or strangers who would not stop. The infected would not respond to sedatives like normal. In the last 12 hours, it accelerated. Cases doubled, then doubled again. From what we were hearing on the hospital channels, it is not just here. Denver, Fort Collins, out of state, everywhere." "And nobody stopped it?" I asked. "You cannot stop anything that spreads before you know what it really is," she said. "By the time we realized bites were transmitting something, the first patients had already bitten others. Quarantine was too late. We drove down a side street to avoid a cluster of stalled cars. Here, the houses were smaller, older. Christmas lights dangled off some porches. The glow looked strangely normal against the empty sidewalks. "Maybe we do what the alert says," Jerry said after a while. "Find a decent house that looks empty, holes up inside. Better than driving until we run out of gas." "Breaking into someone's home is not exactly legal," I said. Jerry raised an eyebrow. "Kid, law is not what it was a few hours ago. Besides, I am not talking about stealing TVs. I am talking about not being out on the road with these things. We leave a note. We take what we need to not freeze. We can make it right later if there is a later." Lauren nodded slowly. "He is right," she said. "We need a defensible position. Somewhere with limited entry points. Somewhere we can check each other for bites, set up watches, rest. We are not going to think straight if we run on adrenaline all night." "Okay," I said. "Then we pick carefully. We want a house with a good view of the street, not too many trees blocking sight lines. Not too many windows, 1 or 2 doors, maybe a fenced yard." We drove another few blocks, scanning. We saw a house with every light on and shadows moving inside. Not safe. We saw another with the front door wide open, porch light swinging. Ominous. Finally, at the edge of a small cul-de-sac, we found one that fit our rough criteria. It was a 1-story ranch-style house with a small attached garage. The driveway had no car in it. The porch light was off. The curtains were mostly drawn. A simple chain-link fence surrounded the yard. No obvious movement inside or outside. Jerry pulled the Taurus to the curb a few houses down. We did not want to park right in front of our potential refuge in case we had to leave quickly. "All right," I said. "We check it quietly. If there are people inside who are okay, we ask to come in. If not, we do what we have to," Lauren said. "But we do not go in assuming anyone inside is our enemy." We got out of the car one by one. The cold hit again. Snow creaked under our shoes. I adjusted my grip on the fire extinguisher. Jerry still held the adjustable wrench. Lauren had the hammer and the car keys in her pocket. We moved along the sidewalk, staying low when possible, eyes scanning up and down the street. 2 blocks away, we saw a lone infected walking in the opposite direction, away from us. No others in immediate sight. At the chain-link gate, I paused. It squeaked faintly when I unlatched it. I winced. We walked up the path to the front door. The doormat had a cheerful "Welcome" sign on it. The lock was a basic deadbolt above a knob. No chain, no steel security door. It looked like a normal family home that had not expected the world to fall apart this week. Lauren stepped up beside me. "Knock first," she said. "We do not just kick it in." I rapped on the door with my knuckles. 3 quick knocks. We waited. No answer. I knocked again, louder. "Hello?" I called softly. "Anyone home? We are not here to hurt you. We just need to talk." Still nothing. Lauren pressed her ear to the door. After a moment, she shook her head. "I do not hear movement," she said. "No steps, no voices." "Back door?" Jerry suggested. "Maybe," I said, "but first..." I tried the knob. It turned. The door was unlocked. We exchanged a look. That could mean someone fled in a hurry, or worse. "I will go first," I said. Lauren shook her head. "I will," she said. "If there is someone hurt inside, I am the one with medical training." I hesitated, then nodded. "We stay close," I said. "No splitting up." She took a breath and pushed the door open. The smell that came out was not as bad as I had braced for. It was stale, like a house closed up for a few days, with maybe a hint of trash left in a bin. Not the heavy, unmistakable smell of something worse. The entryway opened into a small living room. A couch faced a flat-screen TV. A coffee table had a few magazines and an empty mug on it. A pair of shoes sat neatly by the door. "Hello," Lauren called gently as we stepped inside. "If anyone is here, we are not intruders. We're just trying to get out of the street. We will leave if you want us to." Silence. We moved deeper. The hallway led to 3 doors. One partially open door revealed a bathroom. Another a dark bedroom with a neatly made bed. The third, at the end, was closed. Lauren gestured at me. I moved to the closed door, listening. No sound came from behind it. I wrapped my fingers around the knob and turned slowly. It gave, without resistance. The bedroom beyond was empty. The bed was unmade, sheets twisted. The closet door stood open. A suitcase lay open on the floor, half-packed. Clothes were strewn nearby. A sense of interruption hovered in the room, like someone had started to leave and had been stopped halfway through. "Looks like they left in a hurry," Jerry said, leaning in behind me. "Then they're either somewhere safer," Lauren said, or she did not finish. She did not need to. We checked the kitchen. A half-eaten sandwich sat on a plate on the counter, bread dried out. A bottle of water stood half-empty next to it. The back door was locked, blinds drawn. The garage held only boxes and an old lawnmower. "No one here," I said finally. Lauren rubbed her eyes briefly. "All right," she said. "Then we clean what we touch, lock down the entry points, and set up." We did a quick sweep again, this time looking for anything that could be used as a barrier or tool. We found a flashlight, a small toolkit, a baseball bat in the closet, and a box of batteries. The pantry had canned food, pasta, and a couple of gallon jugs of water. It felt wrong to take these things without permission. At the same time, leaving them untouched while we risked our lives outside felt even more wrong. "We write a note," I said. "If the owners come back, they will know we did not just loot." Lauren nodded. We found a pad of paper and a pen on the kitchen counter. I wrote, "To whoever lives here, we are 3 people who took shelter here during the emergency on—" I wrote the date. "We did not damage your home. We used some food and water and a few tools. We closed your doors and tried to keep the house secure. If you return and find this, I'm sorry we were here without asking. We are just trying to stay alive. Ryan Cole, Sparkomatic, Laundromat night clerk, Greeley." I left the note on the coffee table. We set up a basic system. One person would watch at the front window, peeking through a narrow gap in the curtains. Another would rest. The third would check doors and supplies. Lauren examined my elbow scrape, cleaning it with antiseptic from the house's bathroom cabinet and a bandage. She checked Jerry's hands, which were rough but uninjured, and her own wrists and neck, which had minor bruises from where she had swung the laundry basket back at the laundromat. "No bites," she said. "That is the main thing. This infection spreads through bites and blood in mucous membranes. At least, that is what we were told. Keep wounds covered. No touching your face with dirty hands." We washed our hands thoroughly with soap and water, the simple act feeling heavier than usual. I took first watch at the window. Through the curtains, I watched the street as the night wore on. I saw a police cruiser speed by once, lights flashing but siren off. It did not stop for anything. An hour later, another car went past, stuffed with people. A kid pressed their face to the window, eyes wide. Their car slowed as if considering our quiet cul-de-sac, then continued. In between those rare signs of normal movement, I saw more infected. They did not move like a coordinated group. They wandered individually or in pairs, drawn by distant sounds we could not fully hear. Sometimes one would stop under a street lamp and just stand, head slowly turning as if listening. Then some noise, a distant shout, a car door slam, would make their head snap in that direction, and they would move that way. Twice, one came into our cul-de-sac. Both times we froze, turned off lights, stayed silent. The infected would walk partway in, pause, head turning. Then, apparently finding nothing of interest, they would drift out again. Lauren's phone finally got a bar of signal around 3 a.m. She managed to pull up a brief text from a coworker at the hospital. "Lauren, where are you? ER overrun. They are in the halls. We had to lock down ICU, some staff bit, stay away." No reply came when she tried to answer. When dawn finally started to lighten the sky, the snow outside had thickened into a thin blanket on roofs and lawns. The street looked clean and cold. If not for the occasional faint mark where a foot had dragged through the snow in a strange pattern, it could have been any winter morning. We sat around the kitchen table with mugs of instant coffee made from supplies we had found in the cupboard. The warmth helped a little. "So," Jerry said, blowing on his cup, "what now? We cannot just sit here forever. No power here means no heat if the grid goes down. No job means no money, no deliveries, no supplies." "We wait for daytime to scout," Lauren said. "Daylight will make it easier to see them before they see us. We need more information." The radio was already repeating the same message. Either the situation has stabilized somewhere, or the people sending the message are gone. "You really think it could all fall apart in one night?" I asked. She looked at me, tired eyes steady. "It did not fall apart in one night," she said. "It was cracking for days. We just did not see the cracks until we were standing in them." I thought of the videos I laughed at, the ones I thought were staged, the group chat jokes, the weird behavior I had chalked up to drugs or bad decisions. It all layered itself into a different picture now. "I left my whole life back there," I said quietly. "At the laundromat. My car, my stuff, and we still might not be safe here." "You left a place that would have become a trap," Lauren said gently. "You did good. You got us out. You used what you knew, ceiling space, machines, tools. You turned a laundromat into a distraction instead of a tomb." Jerry nodded slowly. "That place was meant for cleaning clothes," he said. "You did not sign up for the other cleaning." We sat in silence for a moment. I pictured the rows of machines back at Sparkomatic, the way they had looked when I left the cameras behind. In my mind, the infected still moved between them, bumping into chairs, smearing the floor, slamming against doors. The machines did what they were built to do: spin, wash, dry. Only now, the world outside had changed into something they had never been designed for. "I was just a bored night clerk," I said. "This was supposed to be an easy job. Long hours, some strange customers, sure, but nothing I could not handle. Now, you handle this," Lauren said. "1 hour at a time, we all do." I nodded. That first night, in the fluorescent buzz and detergent smell of the laundromat, I thought the hardest part would be getting to my car without becoming another casualty in someone else's news clip. I was wrong. That was just step 1. Part of me wanted to go back with a crowbar and a shotgun and turn the laundromat into a fortress. It had steel frames, heavy machines, bolted change stations. With enough work, I could probably have barricaded it and lived there for a while. But the memory of those hands smearing across the hallway door, the sound of their bodies slamming into the wood, the way they all turned at once when I dropped that metal duct, that told me everything I needed to know. Staying in a building with that many windows and doors in a strip mall that was already drawing the infected was suicide. Instead, I sat at a stranger's kitchen table, sipping their coffee, using their canned beans and their batteries, and planning the next move. We had improvised weapons: my fire extinguisher, Jerry's wrench, Lauren's hammer, the baseball bat. We had a working car with half a tank of gas. We had basic medical knowledge and one person who had seen more of this infection's early stages than most. We also had no guarantee that the people who owned this house were okay. For all we knew, they were in a hospital hallway somewhere, or in a stalled car, or walking aimlessly down a road. I folded my hands around the warm mug and made myself a promise. If I lived through the next week, I was going to find Frank, my old boss, and tell him his little laundromat had been the place where my old life ended and the new one started. He would probably shrug and look at the numbers, the cost of broken glass and missing vending machine inventory. But I would know. It was not heroic. It was not cinematic. It was a night clerk improvising with what he had: coin-op machines, a back hallway, a weak cell signal, and a stubborn refusal to let a place meant for cleaning clothes become the place where my story ended. The infected were out there. The world was changing fast. I did not know what would come next, but I knew one thing very clearly. The next time I walked into a 24-hour laundromat under bright fluorescent lights, I would never again think of it as just a boring job site. It would always be the first battlefield I survived. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support keeps these creepypastas coming. Until next time, stay alert, stay safe, and never ignore the feeling that something is watching.